ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tex Messages on the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to be here once again. It's Thursday evening, December 26, 2018. Very closely nearing the New Year's Eve party of 2018, the final day of 2018. And that brings us to 2019, which, 2018 went by pretty quick. We probably started Text Messages, well, most likely was, I don't remember the exact date, but probably around March, because it was probably early February where I consulted with the individual who filmed the top-rated public access channel show from central Minnesota in the early 2000s, late 90s, even up to the mid-2000s. So, we're very closely nearing the 1 year anniversary. Now, yeah, you could say this is Text Messages Resurrected, so technically it would not be the anniversary because the first episode was Text Messages, and this is of course the resurrection. I mean, we did take about, it was roughly 4 months or so, when the producers canceled the show, which wasn't really the best idea, because sometimes you just got to press the attack and just keep moving forward. It did help because we got some better ideas of what direction to take the show, and whether they're good ideas or good directions or not, it's always hard to tell, but variety is always a good thing, different strokes for different folks. As you may have noticed, the last couple episodes we were filming in mobile locations. Now, yeah, one of the reasons for that is because I didn't really... It was a busy weekend due to the holidays, so I didn't really want to spend too much time standing here on a Thursday night or something when you could be out doing other more important things. So it was kind of combining two birds with one stone. Now, yeah, you could maybe film some other time of the day or whatever the case may be, and ultimately we may do that, but we just decided to give that a shot and see what the outcome would be like. And maybe if it's seems like it'd work out great, then that's possibly the direction we'll take the show in more frequently. And the other thing too, I mean, it does add a small element of danger, because when you're operating a 1,000-pound motor vehicle and saying stuff, it's really not as easy as it looks. And I mean, it is slightly more dangerous, but you figure, hey, if you're gonna have to drive somewhere anyways, you just may as well. Now that's another thing I wanted to discuss today, ladies and gentlemen. Automated cars. Now, a lot of people are very concerned about that because they think it'll strip them of their individuality. But in reality, if you think of traveling, when you travel on a train or an airplane or a bus, you're just sitting down, you're relaxing, you can read books, you can look out the window, you can converse with other people in the vehicle, and it's just an overall entertaining, positive experience. Now, that can also similarly be done with cars too. If cars were automated, they can drive themselves, because it does not take a conscious individual with creativity and art and a soul and everything to drive a vehicle. A vehicle can be done, if it can be done electronically by some dumb machine with no soul and heart and everything, then it seems prudent to do so and go ahead and with that direction. Now, yeah, there's obviously going to be growing pains, and it's engineered by man, so it's not going to be perfect. I mean, hell, even things engineered by the Almighty don't appear perfect based on our perceptions. So to have something engineered by man, of course it's not going to be perfect or flawless or anything like that. But, I mean, just because, if you have an automated car, rather than, sitting and watching cars drive by you or watching the road ahead of you or watching your dash get dustier, you can actually maybe read a book or maybe watch some YouTube videos or watch some movies or something while you're going individually to wherever your destination is. So as far as automated cars go, it definitely seems like a great thing, and hopefully it's the wave of the future, whatever the case may be. Now, yeah, I get a lot of people are skeptical of it. They think it'll remove them of their freedom and impede on their rights and everything like that too. But, yeah, when you think about it and evaluate it carefully, it does seem like it will save people time and will allow you more options as far as traveling goes, rather than just staring out the window. Now, yeah, sometimes there's nothing more relaxing than going on a back country road and driving for an hour and just enjoying the scenery and everything too. But think of how much more relaxing it would be if your brain wasn't on high alert due to trying to avoid getting into an accident, or hitting a traffic cone, or maybe hitting a barrier and flipping the car over a couple 13, 14 times. So if your brain would not have to worry about that, then it's going to be a far more relaxing experience and pleasurable and all that things, and it'll be a lot more positive. You're going to have passengers with, you can interact with them at a more personal and complex level, and yeah, I mean, ultimately it should just make lives a little bit easier for us. Now, obviously, making lives easier for us isn't always the best thing, because there are malicious actors in this world and in this existence. So it's obviously you need to scrutinize them very closely. I mean, if they're going to push automated cars into the public as soon as possible as a means of tracking people easier, being able to sell data and figure out where people are going and why they're going there, then yeah, it is something to be a bit concerned with. But I mean, if you think about, let's just assume for a little bit that everybody who's behind automated cars are all good, upstanding people. Like Elon Musk, he seems like a pretty upstanding guy, a good guy, a hardworking, American patriot, or whatever the case may be, even though he immigrated from South Africa. Yeah, I mean, I guess technically he's an African American that owns Tesla. So if you think of Tesla as, well, I guess the CEO of Tesla is an African American, but he seems like a good guy and everything. But if everybody involved with automated cars are good, upstanding people, and they mean well, absolutely it would probably increase the quality of our living. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times if I want to read news articles or something like that, saying you don't have enough time is kind of an excuse, but it's just reality sometimes. I mean, for example, you got to satisfy show sponsors, you got to catch up on sleep, you might have to go to Menards. All those things take time, and we only have a finite amount of it. Fortunately, though, at Tex Messages, we do have an enormous budget, so that's really not an issue. And health, see, time, money, and health are about the three things that humans seem to value most. Health is probably number one. Time is a little fickle, because, I mean, it's fixed for everybody. Yeah, you can argue the space-time continuum and all that, 4 dimensions and whatnot. But money, the Federal Reserve can just easily put a couple of zeros in a bank account and call it money. So it doesn't seem to have as much tangible wealth as something like time. And then, of course, health means absolutely nothing without, or time and money mean absolutely nothing without health. So health is probably the roots. Time is probably the stump or the main artery of the tree. And then the leaves and the branches, the end of the branches, can be considered the money. So I guess money would grow on trees in that analogy. Well, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of growth and growing things, I haven't been able to read a news article for a while here. We did have an emergency broadcast maybe 2 weeks ago about clean water. Highly recommend you check that out. It has very important information just about well water that has magnesium, calcium, manganese, phosphorus, iron, copper, all that stuff that'll make you healthy. Clean water, you can't really do a whole lot without clean water. But getting back to the news article. So naturalnews.com, great news source. Apparently hemp prohibition is now over after the new farm bill has been signed by the 45th president of the United States. So it ends 50 years of prohibition. See, back in 1970, hemp, hemp doesn't technically contain the THC that's in marijuana that people smoke, or weed, whatever you want to call it, Mary Jane. So, but it was still classified as a Schedule I drug, and nobody could quite really understand why, because apparently hemp fuel was what powered the Model T, and an acre of hemp can produce the same amount of paper as 4 acres of trees. And if you make hemp rope, it's very strong and durable. So it just sounds like a miracle plant almost. And yeah, for some reason they just banned it in 1970, held it Schedule I drug. Apparently they just maybe wanted people to grow corn or whatever the case may be, or pine trees and whatever. So nowadays, plants with no more than 0.3% of the THC are no longer Schedule I. The USDA will still regulate the hemp products. Currently it's unclear exactly how they plan to do that, so more than likely how that stuff generally works is, well, once a few palms get greased, and then they figure out what direction they're going to go based on who invests in the head of the USDA or who appoints them there and what companies support them. And then once they get that all figured out and who's going to pay up and who's going to pay the piper and play ball, then they'll know how to regulate it. Very rarely do any laws or bills that pass through Congress benefit the individual, even though the individual is technically above the law. It sounds weird, but if you look it up, that's how America was founded, on individual rights and of course freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So there's no restrictions on going across state lines. The sale, transportation, and possession of hemp is of course not as restricted anymore. However, CBD, cannabis-based oil, or whatever it is still restricted by the FDA as a dietary supplement. So, I mean, yeah, in some states like California and Colorado, then laws are a little bit more lax. But now this is a federal law here, or a federal bill, whatever, regulation, lack of regulation, restriction, upheaval. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously great news. And, I mean, lately it seems that the trend has been towards just legalizing weed and marijuana altogether. And hopefully that'll make a lot of people happy. And hemp, I mean, seems like a pretty great product. I mean, hell, maybe I'd start growing it out here or something, and not really quite sure what it would be used for, but it might be worth something good, or it might be useful for something. So maybe in the spring or the fall, then we'll start discussing growing hemp and talking about how it's making yards great again. Maybe the chickens would like eating it too. So that's probably another thing to consider. Speaking of growing foods and everything, another research article that came across my eyes. So we're gonna do a bit of a quick hit on the news articles here, because technically, the last couple of shows we didn't read any news articles because it would be extremely dangerous to do that while driving, especially if you're driving yourself. I mean, if the car is automated, it won't be so dangerous, but a non-automated car, very dangerous. So the title of the article: 93% of Americans have glyphosates in their body. Glyphosates come from Roundup. It's the main product in Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayer, B-A-Y-E-R, Bayer, the big giant pharmaceutical company. They're actually getting sued and settling a lot of lawsuits for billions of dollars for people claiming they got cancer from glyphosate. So it has crept into the legal system, and now it's basically public knowledge. Studies across the USA and even in rural parts indicate that people are having glyphosates, or they find them at maybe not considered dangerously high levels, but high enough levels to raise concern. Europe has put a lot of restrictions on it, and they're very close to banning it, appears. However, in the United States, the EPA continues to be in the pockets of politicians, so that always makes it a bit difficult, because USA is basically capitalist in a very, very pure sense. Well, maybe not a pure sense, but it's very capitalist, even down to politicians and investing in politicians and investing in people that run countries. Even at the city council level, people's palms are probably getting greased. So you can pretty much be rest assured it's happening at the national level, and even in urban areas. Like if you live in San Francisco or Minneapolis, they're gonna have a lot of people use Roundup to kill weeds, or they use it in parks and everything like that too. In Minneapolis, for example, they got parks every block or something. If you live anywhere in Minneapolis, within 2 blocks there should be a park where you live. That's at least about 2 city lots or something like that. And yeah, of course, to kill weeds, rather than just getting on your hands and knees and pulling them, a lot of people just spray them, even knowing full well that that's going to get in the ground, it'll probably get on the skin, it'll get in the air, and just cause a whole ruckus. And a lot of the dangers in glyphosates is that they are endocrine disruptors that actually destroy hormones. Shampoo is kind of the same way too, and your scalp is very sensitive, so when you put shampoo on your head, it gets in your skin and it just causes a bunch of endocrine disrupting properties. And the glyphosates definitely do the same thing, and they accumulate in your body, and not only do they kill weeds, they basically kill you. So technically, maybe we are weeds. So, I mean, that's a bit of a somber note, ladies and gentlemen, but it just goes to show whenever you take shortcuts, it usually always comes to bite you. Yeah, if you got weeds in your yard, you don't want them there. Either learn to love them, or it's a good idea to just take the extra time to pull them out by hand. Yeah, they always come back, and it causes more issues. But for example, if you got maybe some feral cats or whatever that want to hang out with you outside, then it'll just make it an overall pleasant bonding experience. You can go out and hang out with them. Or maybe if you got some feral raccoons or possums that hang out with you too, or a squirrel, or maybe an alligator if you live down south, or a Komodo dragon, a Bigfoot or something like that. So Good excuse to be outside too, especially if the sun is out. Then you get your vitamin D, and if the sun isn't out, still a good excuse to be outside. And lastly, one further news article we have this evening, ladies and gentlemen: Salmonella. Now, Salmonella has been a big issue as far as being in meats. It grows very quickly. If you leave chicken out of the refrigerator for maybe a day, it's probably almost guaranteed it's going to have Salmonella. Unless it's got all those preservatives on it, like deli meat, then it doesn't. You still want to refrigerate it, obviously, but high temps are usually what Salmonella go towards. That's why we refrigerate foods and freeze them and everything too. Now, there's a study, and what they found is that Salmonella can survive in cookies and crackers for at least half a year. That's a bit surprising because they're a dried food. So usually a bacteria needs some type of liquid or moisture to survive. So the fact that they can, or pathogens, so the fact that they can survive on something like cooking cracker for that long is very, very disconcerting. And it cannot be killed by baking and cleaning alone. You definitely just, it's very resilient. It's evolved over time. It has a very short half-life, and it definitely festers in a lot of food, and it's probably not going to go away anytime soon. And it absolutely thrives in warm temperature. Which is why it's always a good idea to get things in the fridge as quickly as possible. Cheeses is especially the case. And when you go to the grocery store, for example, if you see a chicken and it's very close to the sell-by date or freeze-by date, that's definitely something you want to take seriously. Now, yeah, you could think, well, I'll just toughen it out or whatever. Or if you cook it good enough, it's not going to affect you. But even with dead strains of pathogens and bacteria, your body is still going to react to it. Now, yeah, you're probably not going to get massive sickness from it, but you will get upset stomach and maybe even vomiting and acid reflux and things of that nature. The thing I like the vaccine, the alleged science behind the vaccine, it gives you a dead strain. Now, your body is still going to react to it. It's still going to build up the immunity. So when you eat pathogens that are now dead, it's basically doing the same thing. So, food handling is very important. Definitely something that I absolutely need to pay very close attention to on a regular basis. Especially if you cook food in a crock pot and leave it sit in the fridge for a while. The smell test doesn't always work. Now what would be pretty cool though is to get some petri dishes and the agar or whatever it's called, and then, if you eat some food that you suspect may be contaminated with something, just go ahead and petri dish it up and see what you can grow. Maybe you can identify whatever the pathogens or bacteria are. So, probably a good idea to clean your fridge every once in a while too. Or the recommendation is to leave meats on the bottom in a tray, because you don't really want any of the fluids to leak from them on any of the other foods, especially if you're eating food raw. Then you absolutely do not want that to happen. So just basic common sense like that goes a long way in the handling of food. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it appears we've come to the conclusion of this evening's show. We're glad to have you here once again this evening. Hopefully we'll be back again this weekend, even though it's another holiday weekend. So we may deviate from our norms a little bit, but by and large, we should be back, and we're elated to have you here, and we salute you. Have a good one.